Okay, so I'm going to invite the two writers and the two directors down. And the cast members can stay in the audience, but we may have questions for you. So, be ready to answer. But if the writers and directors can come and join me down here. And I want to just tell you a little bit about how we're going to do this discussion. We're going to use a very particular process of discussion. And the reason for that is that I'm sure you've all had this experience of doing a performance or showing some work that you've created to someone, and it can be really difficult, right? You're waiting for people to say, I hated it, or this didn't work, or and sometimes even the good things can sometimes be hard to hear. So we're going to be using a very particular way of discussing the plays. I want to explain it a little bit first, but as we get into it, it'll become a lot easier, and you'll remember all the stages. Basically, there are going to be 4 stages to the way we discuss the plays today. And the first stage is about anybody in the audience saying what they found memorable or meaningful or engaging about what they saw in that play. Okay? And this is not a question, this is not an opportunity to say, I liked. It's not about what you liked. Actually, what you liked is irrelevant, okay? What did you find meaningful? What did you find memorable? What did you find engaging? So I'm asking you to be very, very specific, okay? I'm not asking you to say, I thought it was great. I liked the acting. I'm asking you to say something more specific. So, for example, it might be, I found it really meaningful when the street was completed in the last one, okay, for whatever reason, whatever the reason was that you found that meaningful. Okay, does that make sense? Yes. Okay, so that's stage 1. So we talk about what's meaningful, what's memorable. Stage 2 is that the people who have created the work, and that can include the actors, but I'll give first options to the directors and writers, can ask you a question. So we all know these works aren't complete, all right? But they are really interested. They were choosing particular portions to put on the stage. They're really interested in knowing certain things about how you responded. So they will ask you questions about something. So it could be, did you understand it when this happened? What did this line mean to you? Anything that you feel like you'd like to ask of the audience, okay? It's your opportunity to ask. That's stage 2. Stage 3 is that you can ask questions of the creator. Now, those questions need to be neutral questions, okay? So this is a really important thing, and I'll just explain it for a moment. You can sometimes ask questions that are not neutral. For example, you could ask a question that said, why was your play so long and boring? Okay? Is that a neutral question? No, because it's definitely giving your opinion in it, isn't it? Right? So what you should rather, let's say you did find something long and boring, a way to ask a neutral question about that would be something like, what do you feel the ideal length of your piece should be, and why? Okay? You're not saying what you felt about it, but you're trying to ask it in a neutral way. Okay, is everybody clear about stage 3? Okay, and I'll help you if we forget these things. And then the final stage is that you can offer opinions, but the way we're going to do it is very specific as well. So if you wanted to offer opinion, let's say, about the subject matter, you would say, I'd like to offer an opinion about the subject that you chose to discuss in your play. Are you happy to hear that? And the writer can then say, no, because I know what I want to discuss, and I don't really care what you think about my subject matter. So for me, I'm discussing the subject matter regardless of your opinion of it, okay, for example. Or they could say, yes, I'm really interested to hear about what you think about my subject matter. So in other words, we give the creators the option to hear your opinion or not. I'll give you an example of where this might be important. Let's say you guys didn't understand the fact that this was a play reading. You might say to the creators, I have an opinion about your costumes. Is that opinion relevant? It's not relevant, is it? Because you're not doing a costume performance. So then the creators have got the opportunity to say, hang on a moment, listen, these weren't the costumes. I don't need to hear the opinion. Okay, so just basically what this whole process allows us to do is to keep serving the creators, so that it's not about necessarily just your opinion. It's about how whatever it is that you've experienced can really help them build a stronger piece. Okay, is everybody clear about that? Yes. Great. So the first stage is, what did you find meaningful or memorable? And we're going back to the first play, so Mbuzeni. What did you find meaningful or memorable in Mbuzeni? 4 girls, yeah.
Playing dead.
Playing dead.
Yes. We have most of us, we used to play dead after someone's dead.
Uh-huh.
So that's why I find memorable.
Uh-huh, great. Thank you. Somebody else? Yes?
I find the unity memorable. It's like the way they stuck together and looked after each other. That was really nice.
Great, thank you. Did everybody hear that? The unit, the way they stuck together, the way they looked after one another, that sort of, that sense of the group. Very good, yeah? Somebody else? Yeah?
I love the tension between the difficult emotional subject matter and the humour. Very well.
Okay, thank you. Yeah?
And also the tension between when death is a game and then when death is real. And the children don't initially realize it, and they're still in that humorous joking space. I think that's very meaningful.
Yeah, great. Okay, very good. Yeah?
I found it memorable because of why they like stuck together and they didn't have people to look after them. They were like on their own paths.
Yeah. Okay, so there was sort of there were no adult authorities or anything in that world. They were kind of looking after one another. Yeah, Alex?
I found the image of the crow or the death image incredibly memorable.
Good. Yeah.
What I found memorable is how they found humor in the funerals they were playing out.
Great. Anything else? Yeah, Stefan?
Something I found memorable was that they play the funeral and so on, but no one's actually there to guide or mediate, so there's no adult or someone older, and when they're actually confronted with the death, they all run away. They don't actually deal with it the way that they've been playing and processing it and so on, but when it actually happens, suddenly the reality of it is just too much and they all disappear and run from it. So the absence of another, it's just them alone in isolation, it kind of, there's something missing there. That when it actually happens, they can't cope. Yeah.
Good. Okay. So let's move on to the second stage. Writer and director, are there questions that you would like to ask the audience? Anything that you feel that you'd like to find out whether they got, whether they're interested in? Please come in, come and join us, I think. Or not.
I have a question that's to the young people, to the 15-year-old people, and that is, from my understanding, Koleka's thoughts about the play is that it is for your age, and I have a child that age, and something she's not really interested in is the lives of younger kids. And so I have a question in that, did you find it engaging and interesting to be watching a play about 9, 10, 11-year-olds when you passed that stage and maybe less interested in it and your 10-year-old brother just gets on your nerves? That's kind of, is the age of the of the children in the play, is that right for you as a 15-year-old?
Anybody want to offer a response to that? Yeah?
I was 19, but I was that age. I wasn't like that, but my brother was like that. 19 like that. Oh. And then I was very close to that, going to reach that age soon, so I was like,
So you related it through your siblings in a way. Okay, great. Anybody else about? Yeah. Yes, you. Apparently, that's something to say.
I think it's good that taking us back to those stages. It reminds us that we have been there and we should respect the people who are at that stage. So I find it fine with me.
Can I ask that question of the actors? How did they feel playing younger characters? Did you feel like that related to you? Was it interesting for you?
For me, it was, though the age difference was so big, but then being 11-year-old reminded me of those things.
Okay. Great. Are you happy?
Yes, that's very helpful because it was something that was concerning me.
Yeah, somebody over here?
Yeah, I say that it was good that we have younger people to present it's good that the actors are all 11 and everything because them being on the streets is like representing that they're doing stuff that older people should be doing, like they're taking care of themselves and everything. So yeah.
So are you saying that the youth of the actors themselves playing the characters was helpful?
Yeah.
To understanding that situation, yeah?
I don't know if this is a yes or no, but I think not children of that age, they must play on, and I didn't see that. And not play like with other people's bodies, like funeral stuff.
Okay, so what you're doing there is you're offering an opinion, all right? And we're going to hold off on the opinions until later, but thank you. Okay, do you have any more questions? Okay, great. So do you have questions now for Koleka or for Jacqueline or for the actors about this piece? Anything that you wanted to know about the piece? Yeah, Richard.
Having now worked on it with young people and seen it, would you, and I just learned that your target audience, I believe, is for older, for kids rather than children. Would you now consider it appropriate or would you like to see it played to a younger audience, perhaps the age of the children that were in the play?
No, I don't think that I'd like to see it played for children as young as the characters, because I think that conceptually the play deals with death and thoughts around death in an older way, a more mature way. It's taking an unusual look at what these children are doing and quite an adult look at what the children are doing. So I definitely think it's an older youth perspective back on the childhood rather than a 7-year-old. I think a 7-year-old might just be a bit bewildered. They may be frightened once we've got our funding and we've got a really fabulous set and lighting and everything, but they may be frightened, but I think mostly they'll just be bewildered and not really sure what's going on.
But to go that young, I mean, what about the sort of 12, the 10, 11, 12 that you were talking about?
Yeah, I think maybe that would, yeah, certainly senior primary and lower high as well, I think.
I don't mind, and I would like to see the play played to 9, 10, 11-year-olds. Because I think initially for me, where the story stemmed from was from my own obsession about death when I was that age. And so I think a lot of the time is that we try and spare the 10, 11, 12-year-old from these subjects. Yeah. And we think that they're immune to pain or immune to experiencing these hard things that happen, like life experiences, when in fact there are 8, 9, 10-year-olds who have lost people who matter and lost things that matter. And so to kind of shelter them from a theatrical experience of that life experience is for me a bit weird, because they're not immune to it in real life. So I would be interested to see how they engage with the subject in the theatre space, because life doesn't really spare them, actually.
Thank you. Are there other questions for the writer-director?
There can be small things, big things, yeah.
What made people in the street not like the dog?
We did second thing. That's still in the first thing. Still fine. Almost my question. Yes.
Do you think if this play was performed for 19, 11-year-olds, do you think they would understand it?
I think I have no idea, but I think I really have no idea if they would understand it. But I think that I have to kind of not trust that they will, but I can't anticipate them not understanding it. Do you know what I mean? That I kind of have to not undermine their intellect and they feel in connection with the subject of death. Because like I said, like death is an experience that we all gonna have to experience at some point or have experienced at some point. And so I think on some level, even if you don't understand the concept of what's happening in the story, there are aspects of the story that they might understand, I think. But that's not up to me to decide if they're going to understand or not.
Can I just speak to that? I think a really useful thing would be to have a test audience, to invite a group of children of that age and have a similar conversation, obviously facilitated on a level that could reach them, but find out what they think.
Absolutely.
Can we offer the response to what you said?
Yeah.
Just to add to the point, because I think there are maybe in film and musicals these really great ideas that are operated. So I don't think that you should be afraid. And things that came to mind were things like Oliver Twist, like Annie, like the Matchbox Girl, I think it's called. I mean, those are heavy.
Harry
big
Potter.
Harry Potter, big subject matter, and kids seem to deal fine. And then suddenly we put it on the theatre and we get really scared, maybe because it's live bodies against live bodies that suddenly becomes more visceral, but I don't think you should be scared about the subject matter you deal with. We'll start with in a really wonderful way. The question to you, though, is were all of the characters written as women or young girls? And why might you make that choice? I think it's an interesting choice to have all women on stage, or young girls.
Okay, so when I started studying drama at drama school, when I started making stories, I decided that I wanted to start making stories for young black girls, women. So that was the first choice, is that putting characters in my plays or in my stories, it would be for and about young black women. So that was the first choice. The second one was about trying to explore the ways in which we have been taught by our mothers and our aunts to kind of mourn or grieve, and how we observe that from like a young age. So we go to these funerals and we look at our mothers and how they cry or not cry at gravesides or over dead bodies. And so I wanted to kind of explore that through the eyes or the observation of young girls, young black girls specifically.
Thank you for that, Maya.
I wasn't quite clear about the setting, where the world was, and so is the world itself, and this is possibly a question of translation for both director and playwright, is the world itself death? So that it's almost ambiguous, that we don't, they're in a sense they're all dead, or they're all ghosts already in a place that isn't really fixed.
For me, in the play I've given the director two options. They can either make the place an unnamed deserted village, or they can make the place a suggestion of the afterlife.
And I chose that liminal place in between, which is probably why it wasn't so clear. I was thinking of that bridging place where the spirits come through and we cross over. So that's kind of where I was thinking.
A threshold, a liminal space.
Yeah, a liminal space.
Okay. So now the last stage is you can offer opinions. So do you have an opinion about this play? But remember, you're not going to offer your opinion just like that. It's a little bit like throwing somebody at something when they're not looking at you to catch it, okay? So you're first of all going to say, I'd like to offer an opinion about whatever it is, and then you can offer your opinion if they agree that they would want to catch your opinion. All right, does that make sense? Cool. So, Anybody with an opinion they'd like to offer? Yeah. What about?
I'd like to offer an opinion about the appropriacy of the audience. I think it would be good if you tested it. There was something that was asked about 8, 9, 10-year-olds. I think it would be good if you actually did test it with them, because when I saw these people, I imagine my 10-year-old sister, and you know, there's this thing where people say when you're creating plays, you think of a particular audience and you say the audience is 15-year-olds. So it would be good if we tested it with like 10, 9-year-olds, because like you say, usually we eliminate them from certain experiences and we say maybe they're too young. But then I've seen my little sister play, and I've seen at times these little people are actually more mature than we think they are. So it would be good for them to be exposed to such type of performances, and it would be a good experience. So I think we should test them with those straight to 15 years.
Any other opinions? Yeah, Dawn.
May I offer an opinion about content? So I would like to see, you know, these kids are looking after themselves. I'd like to see their vulnerability to death. You know, just as suggestions, one child coughing, they're trying to light a little fire to keep warm and they burn themselves. Or what was that other thought I had? I'm hungry. They're hungry. They go to bed, they're hungry. So, and how they try and ameliorate death in very practical ways, because these kids have got no one looking after them. I mean, how do they negotiate life when they're in such a vulnerable situation?
Thank you. Any other opinions you'd like to offer on this first play?
Can I offer an opinion? I'd like to offer an opinion to my actors on how they did.
Yes, you may. They need to say whether they want to.
May I offer an opinion to you? Okay. I thought you were absolutely wonderful, and I was so proud of you and what you did in that short time. And I wanted to make that public. Thank
you. Okay, so then the last thing comes back to the two of you. What would you like to see for this play going forward? What for you will be next steps? What are you taking away from what you've experienced this week?
The audience's role in the play, that's the one thing, because I think you get into the space and you create the play, and you kind of then get into the space and you make the play, but then the audience is something that you normally consider last. And I think bringing that to the first thing that you consider is something that I really want to take away and kind of put them at the forefront of the work.
I'd like to do some research into children living rough. I'd like to, if I were to direct the play, I would like to go to a shelter and spend some time playing with, maybe doing some drama exercises with them, games, and hearing stories in a quiet and respectful way, and try and find out what it does feel like to be 10 and on the streets and without adults taking care of you. So I'd like to find, because these kids are in quite a fantastical and imaginative space, I'd like to find out about real children living in that space. And I don't know if you've already done that, I forgot to ask.
Wonderful, thank you. So, thank you very much. Let's give the first player a big round of applause. Okay, so we're coming to play number 2, Kids from Amandla Street. So remember, we're going back to what was memorable, what was meaningful, what stands out for you, what images do you have? Be specific from the second play. Yeah.
The whole Nigerian accent.
Okay, great, yeah, thank you.
The right to use South Africa is like the guideline, because Amandla Street is in South Africa, in Soweto.
So you're saying that it almost represents South Africa for you?
It does represent.
Yes. Okay, right, thank you. Alex?
The watchman, the neighborhood watchman.
Right. Okay, great. Yeah? Yes, that's you.
When the rollers finished and everyone was like happy and rejoicing there.
Okay, so the celebration about the road, yeah, fantastic.
The separation, so the thing of us versus them and alienating people, for me it really stuck out.
Okay, good. Yes.
The fact that the new road represented a new beginning, not only for like the infrastructure of the place, but for the people that were living in that certain community.
Very nice, yeah. Thank you. Yes, Stephanie?
I really responded to the moment when the young couple recognized each other and fell in love a bit. I really enjoyed that moment.
Okay. Yes, yeah.
I found it memorable that the writer used how, when playing and when it comes to young couples, how children would take blame for other people that they like. So I found that memorable.
Okay, yes, so the character of Fabian High kind of takes the blame for the girl he admires, yeah. Victoria?
When the mother takes the doll and has that moment of like,
Oh, but this was my doll too.
Okay, thank you. Yes?
For me, it's how the actors as a cast, the way they committed to the story, and especially for those who doubled up the characters, didn't struggle to see the change and the shift when it happened. So it was beautiful.
Great, thank you. Yes?
For me, it's how the street saved the day.
How the street saved the day, okay. Okay, any last thoughts on memorable meaningful thoughts?
Well, the role of the doll and the different kinds of power that was explored throughout the play.
Okay, interesting. Different kinds of power. Yeah, Pat?
What I found meaningful / memorable was, or still is, the role of gender. The overlooking man and the symbol of femininity, and how those are at war in between everything without them being necessarily put on the stage for you to observe.
I just remembered, I think also the fact that the door represents play and how important play is to a child. I think I found that memorable.
Okay, so now we've got an opportunity for you, Loreko and Bulelani, to ask any questions that you might have of the audience. Anything that you'd like to ask them?
I want to ask if you could guess what the age of the characters were based on what they were saying. We've got an age, but I just want to see if it matches.
Okay.
Maybe in the script you guys said something about they were in grade 7. So I'm guessing around about 14.
13.
I was sometimes struck by the conceptual articulateness of the and the fully formed thoughts and articulateness of their age, and I sometimes saw your voice and your age and not their age sometimes.
I thought they were 13.
Thought they were 13. Thanks, Hester. Any other questions?
Another question would be, I think also for the young audience, if they connected to the parents of the characters, if there was any similarity between the older characters in the play and their own parents.
Or parents they know.
Yeah, or
other
parents
people's
they know,
parents.
yeah.
What did you feel about the parents? Yeah. Sorry?
They were parents.
They were parents. So, by that are you saying they're believable parents or
Yes. Yeah, they acted different to the other characters.
Right. Okay. So they were written. So you felt like that role was written into it. Is there any other opinion on that? Yeah.
They're almost like protecting the children from any potential harm that could come their way.
And they were almost like guardians instead of like actual parents telling them you must do this or you must do that.
Okay. Are there any other responses? Yes?
The difference between the father character and the mother character, where you see fathers are strong and they're strict, where the father didn't care. Like he was very strict and he really didn't care what he said or how he said it. But then the mother shows some emotion, she's compassionate, but then at the end of the day it's her child's safety she's worried about. So yeah, that clearly came out.
Yes, I think one more is, I think Apiwe touched on it a bit, but I was not too sure. I mean, the play has 7 characters, and I chose for it to be performed by 4 actors. And I wanted to know, for a children's production, I think we've seen it with adult productions, they do it very well, but with children's productions, what does it do to you guys if you see a child playing an adult and switching, so the switching of characters, if not the performance itself, but if it maybe disrupted your connection to the characters, that 2 characters are played by 1 person. So, yeah, if it makes sense.
Yeah?
I say no, because there was a great separation, like in the way, like for example, Olivia, when she was the child, there was like, she used like a different, I don't know if I can say voice, or like the way that she walked and the way that she acted towards when she was actually the mother. So I think there was like a great contrast between those 2, because she wasn't speaking in the same voice or walking the same way, but it was 2 different things for 2 different characters.
It wasn't really confusing to us as an audience, I don't think so. But if it was for younger audience, it would have been a little confusing to understand, but why now? She wasn't just there now.
And would the performers be able to do anything, do you think, to make that confusion less? I mean, or do you think that confusion would just exist simply because the same actor is playing 2 roles?
Younger people, yes, but
Great. I think you had something to say, right? Yes.
I was going to say that.
You were going to say that? Okay. All right, so those are questions from here. What about any questions you have? And remember, you can ask any questions. It could be questions about what happens, what else happens in the play, what happens before, or something you didn't understand. Any questions you might have for them.
Oh, we had a question about why were the people afraid of the doll?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Yes, so why were the people afraid of the doll?
Was it in the scene?
I mean, like we touched on it. So.
Oh, we touched on it a little bit in the scene. But basically the street has, something happened in the street that a woman called Albertina was accused of using dolls as voodoo dolls. So she would take a doll, she was accused of taking a doll and using it to curse other people in the community. So they burned down her house. So, they had an imbiz or a community get together, and they told everyone, because of how these dolls have been used, we are banning them for good. So that's why they were.
And so can I just ask, sort of add on to the question of that, so then do they ban the dolls, do they ban all other forms of playing as well, it seems, or is that just...
Yeah, I mean, the other forms of playing also came in as a result of basically where the community is moving, that kids, in a sense, the banning of dolls itself also, in a sense, represents, the taking away of playing time from the kids and committing it to, fully schoolwork or housework.
And yeah, there's also a construction happening in the street. So that's another factor that is affecting the kids from playing in the street. So. Yeah.
Okay, yeah?
Yeah, what stood out was the role of authority and how it brainwashes basically the community, that you don't form opinions for yourself about another person. It's what's been drilled into you, basically.
And is there a question related to that, or is that just what you saw?
Sorry,
okay, great. Thank you. Yes?
Excuse me, my voice. I couldn't tell from the extract that we saw, and I'm not entirely sure where the extract falls in your piece, but is there a consequence to the doll reappearing in these people's lives? You mentioned just now that the dolls were banned because of the particular experience, and what would be the consequence of the doll appearing now in the...
Oh, as in, say they found the girl with the doll, what happens to the person who carries the doll?
No. Does the doll itself actually have any power or consequence beyond somebody finding them with it?
I suppose the doll was supposedly a curse to the community. So.
I suppose what I'm asking is the curse a real thing, or is it like an imagined thing?
No, yeah, I mean it comes across in the play that it's not really the real reason why Albertina's house was burnt down was not really because of the dolls, but because she was foreign. But this story of dolls was used against her to kind of push her towards burning down the house. Yeah.
And then just any opinions yet?
Yeah, we can be. Are there more questions? Yes, and there's another question. We'll come back to your opinion. Yeah.
So, the street is an intersection of exchanges and ideas. So my question is it an intersection of histories? Because there's a history of group areas, and which seems to be underneath the one narrative, and then emerging is the crisis of xenophobia. So what is the drive for you? Is it a historical continuum of crisis? Is it group areas that hasn't really been resolved, that's boiling underneath, or is it the xenophobia that's boiling at the top?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of the piece takes place in contemporary time, but the idea of the play was the challenge of the history of this street. That I mean, the portion we chose is not in, but the beginning of the play shows how this street was put together in the days of apartheid. So this street is, as you say, it's an intersection of history as well and present time. That some of the challenges that these kids face are because of the unpaid bills of their parents. You know, the fact that they can't get along with someone else. How segregated their parents used to live, and now in the new dawn of democracy, these kids supposedly are supposed to receive one another, but because of the idea of segregation that still lingers on after the democracy, you still get issues such as xenophobia, separatist kind of ideas that still linger on because of the past. So I was also looking into finding a bridge between parents and young people, that a lot of young people have inherited ideas from their parents, even though the education system seems to imply that they are free from past doctrines. So really the idea of how do parents influence children, and how do children forge their own present identity, present ideas, ideals. Yes, yeah, makes sense.
Great. Any last questions? Okay, then opinions. Would you like to offer any opinions? What opinions do you have about that piece? Is this a hand here? Tristan? No? Yes?
May I offer an opinion about accents on stage? I am obsessed with different languages and different accents on stage. I think that sometimes South Africa has a culture of kind of neutralizing voices, so that we all kind of sound kind of monolithic on stage. And it was such a complete joy to hear so many different South African accents validated on stage. I think in both of the productions that we saw this morning, but also to have an accent that we don't hear so often, which was the Nigerian accent, sort of be in the forefront and be celebrated and accepted, and also performed exceptionally well, I thought. So it was just a joy to hear a different kind of musicality on stage in terms of the language use. So thank you for that.
May I offer an opinion on the style of the text?
Yes, I'd love to.
I thought because you chose a realistic or a realism in the way that the style plays out, as in the way that people speak to each other, it's very, very realistic. And I found there's something to think about in the way, and I mentioned it earlier, in just how articulate everyone is at that moment. You know, everyone has their fully formed ideas waiting for them in every moment. No one's struggling for sense. No one has to search for meaning. They know what they think, and they know exactly the answer to every situation. You know, and there's no, because of that, the realism, because you know, it's either that's the style that the people in the street have incredibly formed, opinionated. They know what they know, and they want to say it, or is it like people don't necessarily know, and they have to struggle through the moments, and they get confronted, and they don't know what to say, and they have to come to a realization. I found so in the realism, there's those choices that I think need to be made, because the realizations never happened, because everyone knew everything. You know what I mean? Everyone knew the answers, and they knew what to say, and they knew their positions on the xenophobia, on the thing. They knew how they felt, and so the process is what I suggest you, or like I felt, in the realism, process and realism.
Thanks.
Other opinions? Can be an opinion about anything, an opinion about a moment, an opinion about the play as a whole. Yeah.
Just to continue in the genre of realism, that perhaps there are moments that are anti-real.
Yeah,
and it's to possibly expose or amplify those moments so that the anti-real almost highlights the real. So the doll and what the doll represents and the doll's history and the way that the doll talks back to an ancestral is an anti-real moment that can amplify and expose the real. So it's, I think, the tension of situating something which is very real, but finding those intersections, possibly, of where the anti-real moments occur.
Yeah, I think just to speak back to that and a little bit on what Alex has said, that we were talking about some of the symbols, and sort of, I think that's what you're saying, that, you know, possibly breaking bigger some of the symbols, the doll. Earlier in the play, we've got marbles, and what are those things saying as well in this realistic play? Because we certainly don't want it to be realistic kind of play. We want all these symbols and these objects to be communicating something that is in contrast to the text at times. So, yeah.
Victoria, you have an opinion?
I sort of have a question, but that's against the rules. But it was inspired by you. Great. My question is along these lines of how real are the situations, or how ambiguous are the situations. Why do you decide to let the boy get away? And how realistic is this, like, very aggressive policeman turning around because the street is finished? And I'm sure that there would be more information about the character having an attachment to the street, but that he not only says, okay, I'm going to go pay attention to that, he also says, here's your gun, don't let me catch you around here. Like, all of those backtracks, why you chose to do that, and where you think they might land on this line of ambiguity that you want to play with.
I think it's something that whilst we were here during the week, it's something I wanted to really work on. I also felt I'm also feeling very strongly over the past couple of days that the play sort of, I mean, this is not the ending of the play, but it moves towards quite sort of like a sweet ending, which I've been challenging. I've got the same kind of issue with you, that what is my last, remaining thought that I want to leave behind, that this boy gets away and Amandla Street has saved him, and sort of like a comment on a cool kind of, street that ends up really saving what is wrong in the community, or do I want to pose a challenge to that? And I'm leaning more towards challenging it now, so yes, yeah.
Alex?
Sorry. May I offer an opinion on the Watchman, on the neighborhood watchman, and why I found him so intriguing? Because he's the guy that, the outbreak of xenophobia. He's one of the guys that has been perpetrating this, and to see him on stage, I was drawn to him because I think he's something that a lot of people want to understand. Does that make sense? Like, we want to understand why the xenophobia happens. We want to understand this aspect of our country that seems so antithetical to us and seems so violent. So, and we read, I don't know, I personally have a deep craving for that guy's story. And why is he so filled with hatred? You know what I mean? Why is he so violent towards kids and dolls,
Yeah, I mean, again, with the extract, a lot is sort of missing, yeah. But what we're trying to challenge with the Watchmen is that a lot of communities have traditional beliefs that I think we try to do it with the voodoo kind of thing, that with the voodoo and the curse, and that a lot of communities are still very scared of some of the cultural beliefs that they have. And they might come into conflict while they're living with other people who might as well practice them or not. So I think I'll take that as something that we need to push much further than already is.
Yeah, that's all.
Can I go a bit back? I know that we're backing
Yes,
forward,
okay.
but it came to me as Alex was talking about it with regard to the neighborhood watchman. I found it interesting. I think this is a memorable thing, or an opinion, I'm not sure, that because what's happening a lot in our society is that black boys specifically are not seen as boys, are seen as men. So it was interesting to see the victimization of a black boy and him being treated as a man and instantly pinned to crime, So for me, that aspect of the story is very delicious, because it's a reflection of what, delicious in the sense is that it's a truth reflection of what's happening in society, is that black boys are victimized and they are immediately turned into men just by the fact that they are black boys. So I thought that was interesting.
Thank you. Brelani, you wanted to offer an opinion?
I don't think I'm offering an opinion, but I'm just throwing something that to add on the Watchmen is that we see these things, especially in Nigerian movies, when you see these mansions, beautiful cars, the kings, and so it sometimes plays with your mind as when you are looking back and looking at South Africa and you're like asking exactly what is happening, So I kind of like, when I was looking at the play, I was kind of like seeing this neighborhood watchman, like trying to understand in the way that Lerego has wrote for him. I was like, okay, now I understand this point. I understand these are the kinds of questions I was asking myself sometimes, But then again, so we need to find, that we are not just throwing it there, or trying to start something, but we're trying to show and resolve something there, yeah.
Okay.
If you can.
An opinion/question around derogatory terms.
Oh, yes.
Why don't you speak up a little bit so somebody can hear?
Yes, it was a question / opinion about derogatory terms. The term, maybe you don't even want to say it, the derogatory term that South Africans often use about foreigners was used multiple times in a very short space of time in the play. And I wonder about how we treat derogatory terms in the South African context. Do we treat them sort of like the N-word, like rappers do, kind of reclaim them in a sort of way? Or another faction of society who will never use the N-word ever, not in a song, because it has such a weightiness to it. And I don't think I've ever heard the K-word on stage, and the other South African K-word. And if I were, I think I'd probably throw up in my shoes because it would incite such a visceral reaction. So I wondered if we have the same sort of consideration when we use derogatory terms that are a lot more sort of colloquial and seem a little bit more acceptable. And is the stage perhaps a space for us to problematize them and not use them as loosely as communities might use them?
Can I jump in here and ask a question related to what's just been said? So there was a very big response the first time that word was used, right? First time we heard kwere kwere, there was a big response from the audience. Can I ask you what that response was? If you made that response, what was it that what was your response? Was it shock? Was it the fact that you were seeing somebody you know use the word on stage? Was it that you really didn't like hearing that word? Was it did it make it feel more dangerous? I don't know. What was your response to the word? Because there was a big response when we heard the word the first time. I'd love to hear from some of the Musenbergers first, or some of the younger people in the audience first. Yeah.
It was shocking, especially seeing a classmate using that word. Because I myself, I'm a foreigner myself, but I grew up here in SA. So it was like, I was shocked.
It made the neighborhood watchers seem more stronger and powerful, so that, yeah, that's right.
Okay. Yeah. My reaction was that usually when people use that word, it's like a word of hatred towards people from like to foreigners, and then it's like at school we don't use that word at all, and then like if you go to the community, because there's so many people that are uneducated and actually don't know the situations of the foreigners, and therefore like they use, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like a word of hatred, as in to say that you're not actually happy for having other people in this specific place. That's why like my mother always says, like if I were to go to maybe another African country, and then they would probably use like the same synonym of the same word that they actually used on stage, and I would feel the exact way that they're feeling at the moment, because that's what we are doing as South Africans.
So for you, did you feel, did you feel like hearing the word gave you an understanding of the kind of community this was on stage?
Yes.
So, okay, all right, thank you. Yes?
Made him seem racist.
You made him seem racist, yeah. Okay. Kujilefu, you wanted to say something, and then Kathy.
Yes, I wanted to say the word was very harsh and very offensive.
And a bit offensive.
Yes, because especially looking at the events that were happening recently in South Africa, it's still fresh in Asia. So saying it now, it might be an inappropriate time.
I guess it's a question comment. The idea of the foreigner, and I'm a Motswana, we are not considered foreigners in South Africa. The idea of the foreigner being a skin color, it's this word, mokorekwe. Go to Botswana, makorekwe, finish matter. But kwerekwere is that sound of the language they speak, and therefore it only applies to a certain skin color and a certain group of foreigners. And I was saying to Neo, some people in the township context inherit the word without knowing to whom it applies. And they inherit an opinion rather than actively meaning it. So my comment is for a watchman, because a Motswana using the word, or a Tswana person or a Sotho person saying Mokwerekwere is not the same as the heritage that a Shangaan person or a person who speaks Shona or a Zulu using the word Kwerekwere.
I'd like to say that the word, I think I heard it for the first time in this movie. I can say about Rwanda. Hotel Rwanda, yeah. I think that's the first time I heard the word, and I know what it means. And even though it shocked me, but I feel it has the potentials of shocking the audience into positive action and attitude. I don't think it should be expunged. Yeah.
Thank you. I'd like to come back to you now, because it was directed here, so let's
just quick, Chilabi is the boy who played Femi. And we never really asked him when they first started rehearsing, because Chilabi is from Zambia. Chilabi, did you understand the word? We never really asked you.
I didn't understand that much.
You didn't understand the word? I think, the play in its own, throughout, outside of this extract it's a challenge on xenophobia and how communities are dealing with it, and also a challenge on belief of the word. That, like you were saying, that the word, depending on the angle that you look at it, it can either be powerful, it can either be used for as something relational, So we weren't going that route. We were going the community route, the way the word is being used today. And what we're trying to do with the word is the first mention of the word, the watchman says, "Oh," the way it was written, "Oh, you're a Kwerekwere, continue." He listens to the accent and he doesn't know that he's a Kwere. He just listens to the accent and he says, "Oh, you're a Kwerekwere." So it's also how it was a relational, it was a kind of a friendly response to him saying, "Oh, this is who you are. Okay, continue. What are you doing with the doll in your hand?" So the name wasn't really a point of communication. It was a realization of who he is. Continue. So I think the word itself is used as an idea in the play, more than as something that is trying to transform people. We were trying to demonstrate how children respond to the word as they receive it. As Chilabi is 13 years old in the play. So as of I think someone asked on offensive. I think it was. Yeah. Oh yes. Can you talk a little bit about it? You're not sure about. Okay. So Femi's parents are from Biafra. I don't know if some of us know about the Biafran War. I think Tosin should know about it. Yeah. So Femi has never been to Nigeria in his life. He's fully a South African. So Femi, he himself identifies as a South African more than a Nigerian. So his response to the word is also a challenge to the idea that what do we do with South Africans who sound like other countries or who have descendants who are descendants of people from other countries? And are they South African or are they Nigerian? Should we call them Kwerekwere or should we not call them Kwerekwere, kind of thing. So, yes.
I guess what you're saying as well is how the use of the word is like at least in the view of the Watchmen, is a kind of a useful box to put somebody in a way.
Yes,
you know,
yes,
it's like
yeah,
this
yeah.
very sort of blinkered thinking of, now I can box you, now I know what it is that you are.
It's a word of instinct. I think Kat asked on that. It's a response. It's an instinctive response. Oh, you're black, you know. Oh, you're Xhosa. The way you speak English. Oh, you're Xhosa. So I think the word itself also can be not really used to be offensive. Yes, Mujalifa, not really used to be offensive, but because of the tension that arose, it became offensive. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. Yeah. It was a point of identity. Oh, this is who you are. Continue. But then the person who's receiving this word gets offended. So then it becomes a point of tension. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Very interesting conversation. I think this whole conversation could be a much, much bigger one, but we're going to leave it there. And last question for you is, so where do you want to take this play after this experience and having seen it now a little bit on stage? What are your next steps?
I want to take it to my writer's booth and work on it at home. And then I want it to be seen by a lot of diverse audiences before anything else. I also want, I think the next phase would be trying to talk to the Hillbrow Theatre Project. They're running a lot of, they include a lot of students from diverse kind of countries. And to sort of experiment with what it does, what it does to audiences.
I think that's an excellent idea.
Yeah.
And the Hillbrow Theatre Project likes that idea, I can see. Okay, wonderful. Let's give the kids of Amanda